Hi there, it's Archie. I'm back for the ADHD Care podcast. I've got a very special guest joining me today. We are recording live in person for once. I haven't done this for a while. I've got Dan Jenney. Some of you might remember Dan. He came on one of our podcasts a few months ago. So Dan is a neurodivergent fitness coach, and now pleased to say he's the co-founder of SENturion Fitness Coaching. And I also got Bielby, who is also the co-founder of SENturion Fitness Coaching. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Good to have you back, particularly you, Dan, and also to find out how things have been since we last caught up. So, yeah, I know obviously there's you've just launched a new project, which you're really excited to talk to us about. So, as I introduced to you there, SENturion Fitness Coaching. Would you want to maybe just kickstart and tell us a bit more about what that is? Just explain to us.
So, some of the listeners may remember, when I had the last podcast with you, I said that my aim was to reach as many children as possible, and it wasn't something I could do from my private facility, and the aim was going into schools is a better way for me to be able to help more children and young adults. So that's what we decided to do, and as I kind of put the feelers out there more and more, it became very apparent from parents and people that worked in schools that so many children are missing out on vital PE lessons due to sensory issues, regulation issues. It just really showed the importance of getting in there and helping out as much as possible. The difference, especially in mainstream schools, so we're not just another fitness program. We offer tailor-made physical activity engagement programs to schools that encourage neurodivergent and special educational needs children to become and stay active, whilst having fun and regulating their emotions, ultimately enhancing their academic and proactively preventing future mental health challenges.
Excellent. And certainly I know you've been doing a lot of work in the neurodiversity field, certainly focusing, I know initially it was ADHD, and then you kind of expanded, seeing a lot of children with SEN. What was the inspiration behind you maybe kind of setting up SENturion Fitness Coaching specifically? What was the driving force behind that?
It was chats that I had with Holly. Again, it was just being able to get out there and encourage more children to move and doing it in the right way.
I think for me as well, you know, we've known each other for 4 years now. You're my fiance's brother-in-law. I think you've been late diagnosed ADHD yourself. ADHD and neurodivergencies and suddenly is running the family. And I think seeing the difficulty that the kids have faced and also you as parents have had to go through in terms of the battles you're fighting to just get equal opportunities for these kids. Things that every neurotypical child has, so why should neurodivergent children have anything different? And I think it's driving the mission, isn't it? Because we want to create a better, more inclusive future for everyone, and we want our kids to feel like they have a sense of belonging and that they have a place in community. And I think whether you have kids or you don't have kids, whether you have neurodivergencies in your family, no one wants to hear about a child being isolated. No one wants to hear about a child not having equal access to something as basic as physical activity and sport. The thought of it is really upsetting. So, hopefully we're going to be able to make a difference to one child, one family. It would mean the world. Yeah,
and we've spoken to, myself certainly, I've spoken to a lot of adults that are diagnosed with ADHD, and they truly believe that things would be different for them if they had therapy isn't the right word, but if they had what we offer as a child, if they had that, then they really think things would be different for them.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I think you, me and you, Dan, we've discussed about the curriculum, particularly in schools. When you look at the PE, how it's structured, particularly for neurodiverse children, I think that some of it is not really factoring in their needs. When you think about, obviously the importance of movement is definitely there, but particularly it's the after they've done the physical activity, then they're expected to go back into the lesson and sit down and focus.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of parents make comments about that daily. We get messages daily from parents that they're getting bad reports back from teachers because after PE their child is playing up, but it's not that. It's not the case. They're just not given time to regulate after physical activity, and they do need that time. It doesn't have to be long. but they just need time to just regulate their emotions, settle down, some breathing techniques.
Yeah.
And then they can go back into the class. And we find when that works, I mean, in my private studio, when I do that with children, I take time to regulate the child after exercise. The parents are coming back and saying, what a fantastic weekend they're having.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
I think for anyone exercising, if you go to the gym as well, you warm up, don't you? And then you kind of warm down at the end of your exercise. It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
You've got all those happy brain chemicals flowing from the activity.
Yeah.
And then we just need to bring things down.
Yeah.
We hear too often of kids being told they're the naughty child or they're badly behaved in a classroom after doing something like physical activity or having playtime. And the chances are they're not. They just can't regulate their emotion and they don't know how to release the energy or the emotion that they're feeling. And I think to constantly tell a child you're naughty or to be excluded and go and stand in a corner or to have a detention or whatever it might be that the school are doing to try and reduce that behaviour or mitigate it or face it, that's really damaging for a child to be told they're constantly naughty and that they're constantly bad, because they're not doing it on purpose. There's no intention there. They're not being malicious. They're not being badly behaved, so to speak, for any other reason that they just can't they can't process their emotion. They don't know how to communicate it. So I think that's a big thing as well in terms of raising awareness, because it's not fair for a child to be told that they're naughty. It can really have a long-term effect on them to be told that they are when it's something that they can't help.
I had one message from a mother whose son he was ADHD, autistic, and he could not regulate, or he wasn't given time or the opportunity or perhaps just the know-how of how to regulate after PE. He was playing up. He was made to stand in the corner and face the wall. How do you do that to a child that's neurodiverse? You can't just do that. And it wasn't even his fault. He was just elated from the exercise. He was, and couldn't settle into a class. So he'd play up a little bit. And this is in the mainstream school. And the teacher would make him stand in the corner.
It's humiliating as well,
it is.
I'm just thinking about the timings when they look at the timetable when PE is structured. When do they actually usually have? I think it varies depending on some schools, isn't it? In your opinion, what time do you think PE is worth having? Is it first thing in the morning? Is it towards lunch? Is it towards the end of the day? To address all of these issues that we're discussing.
I mean, ideally for me, it would be before lunch.
Right.
That then gives them time to regulate, enjoy lunch, have some playtime, back into class. But other than that, I don't think really there's as long as you go through the right techniques with the child, and you need to think about obviously whether that child has sensory issues. So if they're in a mainstream school, they're in a class of 30 children, you've got one child that has special educational needs or has a neurodiverse. Are they in the right surroundings to start with? Being amongst so many children running around making noises, is it a bright room? You have to consider all those factors, temperature even, and then you need to regulate the child, and all those techniques need to be put into place. So I don't know whether if you follow everything that we do, and I think it's fine, but when those children don't get those chances, I think that's where the problems really start to arise. So timing of the day, I don't know. That makes a difference.
I've seen some cases where children's been given detention, and which might include maybe not being allowed to go out for playtime or on your break, which is obviously for a neurodivergent young person, it's very crucial that they need that movement, and you're depriving them of that. And then no surprise, they'll start to act up even more. After the break time, all the lessons that follow on through from that.
And I've had parents also saying their child isn't allowed movement breaks when they need it. So they're just the pent up energy and everything there just gets worse. So what do? They fidget. They, you get that acting the clown in class. It's not fair. It just really isn't fair.
As a fitness coach, what are the important aspects of physical activity, just in general for anyone, and more particularly for those with neurodivergent needs? What do you think are what's the importance for just being active and physical?
I think there's loads of importance there in many different ways. One, obviously, is we struggle, neurodivergent people struggle, don't we, to release dopamine and serotonin, and exercise is I believe one of the very best natural ways of doing it. And if you don't get that, what happens? It's so crucial that children have that chance to be able to release those chemicals in our brains when it isn't as easy to do. And then look at medication. If you're a medicated child, a lot of children, they try and stimulate as they come down by eating more food. So you've got the obesity side of things. Then you've got obviously the sense of normality. Being able to exercise with other children is a fundamental thing. It gives them that sense of normality, and also confidence building. And I find I've had neurodiverse children that I've been training for years, and the difference in their behaviour and their confidence is fantastic, and parents really relate to it, and they're so happy with how their child is performing at school and at home. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think it can pull you out that social isolation piece as well, right? Like to be part of something, to come out of your shell, to be sharing this experience with different children where normally you wouldn't, because you feel the pressure to answer a question, or you feel the pressure to academically do better, or whatever it might be. I think when you're playing sport, and it could be something like netball, hockey in an traditional PE setting, or it might be more of a balance and coordination session, or a dance session, or a virtual reality session, which is something that we're gonna offer on a one-to-one basis. I think whilst they're having fun, they don't even know, there's no pressure to perform, to deliver for anyone. They're just having fun. They're with other people. They're building their confidence, and
that sense of normality, that sense of
belonging as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Would you mind just outlining to us more what's the actual structure of your program when you kind of working with the young people?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So firstly, I go through some stretching techniques, some breathing techniques, and if it's a new client, I can build the confidence and the that friendly aspect right from the start. And we've spoken before, haven't we, how I build the engagement, so I get the hook.
Yeah.
So I try and find out something about the child, something they enjoy doing, whether it's a game, an online game, or whatever it might be, football team. Build that engagement, and it builds confidence. The child will build, their confidence in you, their trust. Yeah, thank you. And then the exercises, as I've said again before, if it's an online game, for example, that they enjoy doing, I try and turn that online game into an activity, so it's relatable, something they enjoy doing, and it becomes more fun than a chore. A lot of children don't necessarily want to exercise, but if you make it fun, if you make it relatable, they'll do it willingly. So I go through a number of different exercises. Some will be balance-based, coordination-based, some will be agility. We've talked before about the boxing, how a lot of children enjoy the boxing because the sensory impact of the boxing. And once that's all delivered, I then go into the regulation. I like to use soft, calming music. It's where I can turn the lights down. It's very calm. We get the breathing techniques going again, and I talk through a sequence of different things. And that only needs to take 3, 4, 5 minutes at most. And the session's ended, they're nice and calm, and they can just leave the session happy. And like I say, so many parents come back to me and report just how calm their child has been after the training session.
Yeah. And I've seen that. I think when other young people go for like other activities like sports and things, because they don't have the opportunity to bring them down, to calm them down, you find that when they get home, they're usually very stimulated and very, maybe in some cases, difficult to manage their behaviours much more, to some extent, worse than how it was before. So how would you then incorporate, obviously the idea is to then roll this out into schools and things, so how would that work? So it won't be individualised, would it?
Some will be individualised, certainly. But others will be groups. Groups have to be managed differently, and some children have to be managed differently, in as much as their attention may be that they can only do 10 or 15 minutes of activity. So the build up to the activity, so the stretching and the breathing, the exercise themselves, and then the regulation. Obviously, I have to scale that right down in time, because not all of them can focus or concentrate, for long periods of time. But we just manage that as we go along.
Yeah, and I think it's those initial conversations with the schools. What is it the school needs? What is it their students need? What is it their parents are looking for? And I think this is where the personalisation and tailor-made element comes in, because you've been a PT for over 27 years, you've got a wealth of experience of different exercises and a variety of exercises and methods in sport or physical activity. We can tailor a program to that school in terms of the age of the student that you're currently coaching, their abilities and their needs, the equipment in the school. We can bring in the specialised equipment or utilise the equipment that the school have. But I think the program itself is either group programs and plans, individualised one-to-ones, when a school may not have a group of children, but there are definitely some children that would benefit from a one-to-one session. The assemblies with children, the webinars, the workshops with parents, as well as students and SENCOs. And then it's also getting them involved in community events later down the line, especially in Guildford and Surrey, which is where we're based. So there's a wealth of things we can do to support. I think to start with, whilst we are understanding the market, I suppose, and the community slightly better with what the school needs, it's going to be very personalised. So the school can come to us and tell us what they need, and then we'll work it through.
So what I might do with a 6-year-old or a group of 6-year-olds might not necessarily be what I do with a 14-year-old or a group of teenagers. How I interact with the younger children and how I interact with young adults, again, completely different. But the basics of the stretching, the breathing, then the activities, then the regulation will always stand, regardless of the age of the person, whether they are 5, 6, or in later teens, early 20s. Yeah, the same things will stand.
Yeah.
Do you have any personal experiences that you're currently working with any schools at all at the moment, just to give us an idea
of how that's... this afternoon.
We do.
Yeah, schools. Yeah, the response from schools has been quite overwhelming. We've got a lot to see, but we've got a couple of things we've got to finalise ourselves. Behind closed doors. And
but there's a lot of you train a lot of neurodivergent and SEN children anyway, and young adults anyway. So we're learning a lot through that process as well, and I think it's great to bring those kids also in our journey, help us develop these programs as well, and it gives them that confidence as well in some skills that they can learn along the way. So.
We're asking the right questions. I think we're speaking to the right people, and things are progressing quite quickly.
Wow, I'm pleased.
Thank you.
So soon as well. Yes, I know we discussed about school. I'm just thinking about parents that have neurodivergent children listening to this and maybe thinking about exercises, what they can incorporate on a daily basis for their children to utilise as well at home.
Yeah, so we've just done an ebook, actually, we've got to finalise on that. So again, it's you can start with breathing techniques, 1 or 2 stretches, and then just some bodyweight exercises. You can do some toe to heel exercises, some wall sits, press ups against the wall. Depends again on the age of the child, but simple things around the house where you don't necessarily need equipment. But the most important thing after all of that is your regulation.
Yeah.
We're going to launch our ebook in the next few days / week, so we'll give you a link and
please do.
Listeners can reach out.
Excellent.
It's something it's very easy to follow. It's easy. You don't need any specialised equipment at home, but it's there. It's for parents to use, and I think it will be very useful to have in the house.
Before we discussed about prescribing exercise, remember you discussed. Do you want to maybe tell our listeners about how exercise can be prescribed? What does that mean? Because you discussed it before, didn't we? Before.
Yeah, so I'm not just a coach or a personal trainer. I'm actually what's called a GP referral specialist. So my job is to prescribe exercise. And if you remember, I worked for 3 years in Surrey Borders NHS in the mental health suites. And my job was as a fitness and wellbeing manager. So I'd go in and I'd coach adults with mental health issues. That's where I really found the importance of exercise, not just from physical, but from a neurological point, and that kind of gave me an idea of, look, this is just how important and a magical tool fitness is. And after leaving there, then my children were diagnosed. I've got, as you know, a son with autism and ADHD. I've got a daughter with autism. I'm late diagnosed ADHD. And again, as we've discussed before, you've got your Joe Wickses and your James Smiths out there pushing fitness and nutrition for neurotypical people, but there was no one out there pushing anything for the neurodiverse or the special educational needs world. So I kind of took that calling on board, and this is where it's sort of flourished.
Yeah.
So from me working in the studio on my own to now what we're doing, we're on a journey. Again, the journey is to be able to give as many children the benefit of exercise. Really reach out to us. We'd love to really expand as time goes on and funding allows it, be able to expand across the UK and what we're doing. So prescribing exercise it's so much more than just being a personal trainer. It's understanding.
It's a therapy almost, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm not a qualified therapist, but if you look at the definition of therapy,
yeah, it's a treatment to heal and relieve a disorder.
Yeah. And I think it's not just for children, even for adults as well.
Yeah.
I think all of what we're discussing here, that would apply for neurodivergent adults.
Yeah.
Exercise is still very important, and like what you discussed there, when you used to work in a mental health setting, a lot of GPs would recommend exercise, but I don't think there is something very tailored for neurodivergent.
That's right. So I've worked with a lot of adult neurodiverse clients, and their productivity at work has increased massively. Their home life is better. It's just an all-round game changer.
Yeah.
What challenges do you see encountering, certainly when you're trying to take this idea into schools? Because obviously, as I said, schools their PE structures, programs are set up in the way that they are for neurotypical children, and they haven't been changed or adapted or in any way tweaked to accommodate children's neurodiversity needs. What are some of the challenges do you envisage encountering, and how would you overcome those challenges?
Funding.
Yeah.
Funding is a big thing, isn't it?
That is a big thing for us, and
for schools. There's I think there's 1.3 million students in England with neurodivergencies or special educational needs. Something like 93% of those are in mainstream schools, which is a huge number. And those mainstream schools are often lacking funding or resources or education for their teachers, parents, psychos, whoever it might be that are caring for these kids, to actually teach them and educate them and help them thrive.
Yeah.
We are going to be relying on funding. We're currently self-funding, so we're going to be launching crowdfunders and we're in conversation with Sport England, things like that. But schools need that funding, and without the funding, it's going to be very hard to fund this program at scale in a school community. So I think funding is a huge one.
But it isn't about funding us, is it?
No.
It's about investing. You're investing in children.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Is we're giving these kids a fair crack at things, aren't we?
It's the funding and the education to build awareness on how to, strategies for these children to cope with their either conditions or characteristics or behaviours, whatever it might be, and however we choose to define it. But it's the funding for education, so people have the awareness of how to cope with this, and then it's the funding of equipment, sensory equipment, to help these kids in schools, whether that's through ear defenders, weighted vests, sensory balls, weighted balls, boxing pads, whatever it might be. It's the equipment the school doesn't normally have, and that that's where the
we understand that as well. We do understand they don't have that equipment, but it is vital to what we're doing.
Yeah. And it's vital to the kids.
Yeah. We know that 80%, I think it's 80% of children, neurodiverse and SEND children in schools are missing out on PE sessions because of lack of education, because of lack of funding, because of sensory issues, because of the regulations. So many different reasons why these kids are missing out on something that it is so beneficial to them.
Yeah.
We need to get in there and we need to change things for them.
Have you had any feedback from young people at all? Just directly from them in terms of how they feel after they've gone through?
Yeah, I get feedback all the time. I get nothing but, I want to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I get nothing but positive feedback from the children and the adults that I coach. Yeah. And again, this is what I want to, we're determined to spread what we're doing. We're determined to try and change as many lives as we can through exercise.
Yeah. And certainly collaboration is a key factor in all of this as well. So how do you see that work in how you collaborate with parents, teachers, young people themselves, and any educational providers out there,
I think from a collaboration with parents and caregivers, if you like, through the school environment, there's a lot that we're doing through our Instagram page. There's a lot that we'll hopefully be able to do with the schools on workshops and almost hosting kind of like a walk-in session, I suppose, to an extent, where parents can come along, we can have a conversation. You can reach out to us at any point, which people are doing through the website, to share us their stories and what's going on and what they're needing, which is obviously helping with the collaboration. When we go into a school, we'll spend a lot of time with the school understanding who they are, what their needs are, what funding they have available, what equipment is there, what they've done that's worked well, what hasn't, etc. So we'll analyse that with the school and then we'll collaborate with them on finding a programme that works. Very keen for feedback from parents as well when we do that. And then I think it's, in terms of the wider community, we'd love to work more with the school sport organisers. We'd love to work more with the active partnerships in the local authorities. Like I said, we're in conversation with Sport England. There's Youth Sport Trust. So there's the Association of PE. So there's a lot of charities, CICs, businesses, that we want to partner with, and we are in conversation with at the moment to make sure that we are aligned to what the bigger picture is here, and can be used as a resource.
Yeah. Going back to the parents, though, it is one of the most key things I find is getting the parents on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Showing, just the beauty that exercise can bring to the child's life, and the confidence it can build, and that, again, that sense of normality that your child will have. Yeah. Through and the socialising side of things as well. Yeah.
We'd love to offer almost taster days for schools, if you like, to reach out, let us know what they need, and we can show up and have a conversation with them as to how what we can do to deliver the programme, but also hopefully then, the kids coming out of it at the end of the day, there'll be parents who'll be able to say, I can see an active difference, because all it takes is 30 minutes, 15 minutes is all it takes for you to notice that difference and the benefit physical activity can bring. So any schools that are listening and would love to take part in a taster day with us, please do reach out through our website or our Instagram page, and we'd love to support you.
And also I find that the children, they love the structure of, I know when they're coming to my studio, they love that structure of knowing on a Monday at 5:00 they're coming, and I think that structure is great and helps further on in life as well.
Yeah. Is the idea, like, I don't know, 5-10 years time from now, would you see yourself whereby you be training PE teachers to be able to use your program? Is that the
Most
idea?
Definitely. We want to run workshops where we're helping PE teachers understand the difference between training a neurotypical and training a neurodiverse or a SEN child, and what you need to implement.
Yeah, we want this program to be maintained. We can absolutely deliver a course of however many weeks or months with a school, years, whatever it might be, but the goal would be to bring teachers and caregivers along that journey, raise the awareness, and for them to be able to maintain this moving forward and for many years to come.
No, absolutely. It's vital. It's needed. Clearly, you can see there's a gap there. Certainly, if you think about how adaptable. When you think about children in school, in classrooms, we're saying they need movement breaks, they need fidget toys, they need this, they need that. Same thing with something like PE. Why is that not being adapted to suit the needs of the young people with the neurodivergent needs? So
it is heavily missed, isn't it?
I think there's a mental health crisis which we know about and we've been experiencing for a few years now. Recent months, there's been a shortage of ADHD medication. The one thing that we can all do that's free of charge, very easy to participate in, is physical activity. This is something huge. It can help relieve a lot of
pent up stresses and aggressions. It gives that sense of normality that if you're a neurodiverse child in a neurotypical school and that child sees other kids out there doing this and that,
sense of belonging.
Yeah, it gives them a sense of belonging, thinking I can do that.
Yeah, it's never been more important.
And overcoming, some anxiety issues and things, give them the chance to be like the other kids out there.
I'm just thinking about, you mentioned about boxing earlier, and certainly how you would train a young person with neurodivergent needs, doing the kind of warm up and then regulating them at the end of it. If because obviously they can go to different boxing, coaching, training places and things. I don't think they are incorporating those things that you just described there. Generally, on a mainstream sort of level, any kind in most sports activities, my child goes to martial arts and things. Yeah. It's needed across the board, really, isn't it? If you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you imagine taking a neurodiverse child into a boxing club full of youngsters punching bags, and bags are held by chains are rattling. You've got instructors shouting commands to different children, and there's music blaring.
The lights
that
are
would be bright lights. It would be very hot. It could be very hot in there. It's all things that need to be considered for a neurodiverse child or young adult.
Yeah,
that's, as you know, you've been to my studio. You know yourself that I can control the temperature. I can control the lighting. I can control the music, the sound. I can control all the elements, and those are factors that really need to be thought out when coaching.
I think we can bring awareness to those coaches and those clubs. We can't. At the moment, we're two people. We can't do everything. In terms of, we can't be everywhere, but we can definitely share through virtually and digitally with coaches and clubs doing these kinds of sessions that are normally aimed at neurotypical children or people. The techniques for the regulation of emotion at the end of the session, or if we can help parents when their child comes out of these sessions, they can regulate their child and help them do that in a safe and trusted space. So I think if we can raise awareness that this is something that is needed across the board, not just in schools, tick, and if we can actually be the ones to help deliver the resource for coaches, parents, whoever it might be, to be able to take this on and do it themselves, even better. Yeah,
and just going back to something I said earlier about the adults that I coach and I've spoken to who wish there was something like we're doing now when they were younger, and then look at, as Holly said, the mental health crisis we're going through at the moment. That's costing the UK as a whole £117 billion a year. Now, if we can change the direction of children, give them more confidence, we can then cut down on things like substance abuse, crime, prison, suicide, mental health. I'm not trying to sound like we're the saviour of the world, we're not, but if we can change children and young adults' perspective and show them the beauty of fitness, and that might encourage them to get involved in something else that will change the trajectory of their life, rather than going down that road, that
path.
I've spoken to people that work in the prison system. There's so many undiagnosed ADHD, autistic men especially, I'm sure there are women as well, that if they had these types of therapies in place when they were younger, they wouldn't have gone down the road they've gone down now and ended up in prison, in mental health suites. The rate of suicide at the moment is incredibly alarming.
Yeah, it's that pent-up energy, isn't it? That it needs to be let out in some ways, where you find that they'll end up channeling it in the wrong direction, really, isn't it?
And again, it's just a fantastic way. Exercise is a fantastic way of releasing your happy brain chemicals, rather than, as you get older, looking for another way, like substance abuse, for example. This is such a natural, wholesome way of doing it.
How would you get a young person to engage in this?
Engage in
exercise mainly, because I think when you look at teenagers, some parents would be like, I can't even get them out of the room, and they're glued onto their PlayStation.
This is where you need parents on board. Definitely, you need parents on board to help. Show their child the beauty of exercise and what it can bring in life. I've made a living from exercise, from coaching people.
We need parents to communicate with us, what the kid likes, what the kids don't like, what they've maybe tried and has worked versus what hasn't. maybe what they've had going on in their day that day, which might determine how they're feeling and the emotion and the energy that they've got or haven't got. But I think taking all of that information, understanding what that child enjoys outside of exercise, is where then you can create the hook through the exercise program. You can create a movement where it incorporates some of that stuff or is in relation to some of that stuff. We've done a virtual reality headset exercise session with the exergaming approach. So I think it's really understanding on a one-to-one basis, it's understanding from the parent how that child likes to work or likes to work out and what they're engaged with and what they're interested in, and then you can build a personalised plan from it. And the same will go with schools. If there's a certain key stage that we're working with in schools and they're currently interested in X, Y, and Z, we can then personalise the plan to do that. And we might change it in a week's time, 2 weeks' time. Kids' interests change, but we need the parents and the teachers on board or caregivers on board to help us understand the child, and then we can make it relevant for them.
I'm lucky that a lot of the neurodiverse children that I coach at the moment, their parents do communicate with me really well. So I'll know if my next client, the parent will already have told me he's had a bad day, he's had a great day, hasn't really eaten that much today, energy levels are low, he's not having, he's very flat today, she's had an argument with a friend, whatever it might be. So I know what to pick up on straight away and how to, and that's the good thing about the individualised sessions, that I can focus on certain things.
And I think there's this, they can relate to you as well, certainly with your own experience of having this same sort of diagnosis and that kind of help. I was just going to ask about your own journey in terms of coming into this fitness. I think you talked to us about this before. How did that all come about? I know you were quite young when you first went into kind of boxing and.
Everything I did as a child was a solo sport. The running, the swimming, everything I did. I never got picked for team sports. I never got invited to, parties as a child. So I was quite a lonesome child, I guess, and knowing now, obviously being diagnosed with ADHD, it kind of makes sense, a lot of things, but everything I did well in was a solo sport, and I could never participate in any team sports at all, and I found the gym on my 18th birthday. I was at the door of the gym waiting to sign up before it opened, and that's it. I just flourished from there. Just my hyper obsession became the gym, and I literally the training, the sleeping, the nutrition, everything. I couldn't miss a meal, couldn't miss a training session. I had to make sure I got X amount of sleep, although my sleep is not the best, it's very broken and I don't sleep particularly well, but I did my best, and it soon became apparent that I can pass this on to other people, because I was so obsessed with training and how the body worked. How the body worked then went on to how the mind works, and how obviously then I worked for the NHS and in mental health, and now with the neurodivergent side of things.
No, excellent. For you, Holly, what was it that made you want to go on this journey? Certainly with Dan, certainly with his own experience there. What was it that certainly were you knowledgeable of things like neurodiversity, ADHD, autism before? Or?
Yeah, I was. In my day job, in my full-time day job, we have various community groups, if you like, where we talk about lots of different abilities, disabilities. So I was aware of it, but I wasn't aware of the impact it has, and also the lack of resource that was available for people who were neurodivergent. So when I met Dan, it was COVID at the time, wasn't it? So there was a lot going on anyway. But just over the past 4 years, just seeing the challenges that you and Dawn have faced, but also the kids have faced, it's just really hit home that that's not fair. It's not fair, it's not right. Some of these kids are really missing out on opportunities that I just took for granted when I was younger, having not been diagnosed with ADHD or a neurodivergent condition. So I want to make a difference. I see how important it is for my family, and how important it can be for lots of other families as well.
I think it helps that you're extremely close to my children.
Yeah, and
and you relate very well to them. You understand. You have a great understanding of them and their needs.
Yeah, and I've learnt a lot over the past 4 years, and it's really opened my eyes as to how much this community needs, how I can be an ally for that. And then between you and I, from a business perspective, we have very different skill sets, and that's where we come together and we make this work. You know, I don't have the personal coaching experience Dan has, but Dan then doesn't have the corporate business side of it that I have. So we come together very well.
We do.
We tag team on a lot of stuff, and SENturion Fitness Coaching was born.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I bluff a lot of what I do and let Holly take the slack.
Right, yeah, it helps that she's got the PA experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
And a bit of AI here and there.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. I must be honest, from working with Holly, I've learned a lot on that side of things as well. Yeah, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, certainly. Where did that name come from? I like the SENturion, and I like how you did with the SEN at the start there. So for people that, so it's SENturion.
That's it. Yeah, so instead of CEN.
Instead of CEN, it's SEN.
This was at one point the absolute bane of the whole thing, wasn't it? Trying to find a name. We tried all sorts of different combinations and all different words and names, and nothing would stick at all. And then we had a group chat between myself, my wife, Holly, and Chris, who's my wife's brother. And Chris had no input at all through anything we were discussing. Nothing at all. Yeah. And we were throwing ideas around and logos and this and that and whatever. And then Chris just piped up one day with SENturion with an S, just out of nowhere.
Really?
And then we didn't hear another word from him on there, did we? That was it. And it just stuck straight away. It was absolutely perfect.
We wanted something that had SEN in its title. We wanted or neurodivergent, but it's more than just neurodivergent. So, we wanted something that the name represented in some way. And then SENturion Fitness came about, and it was like, okay, we've been spending weeks rattling our brains, and Chris has had one McDonald's. Here we are.
But I think I like the SENturion idea because it gives that empowering, idea to children.
Yeah. No, I like it.
And it stuck straight away, but with the SEN instead of CEN,
absolutely,
it just really worked well.
No,
couldn't have got it any better.
No, yeah, absolutely. So with your ADHD fitness coaching, is that now part of SENturion, or is that still a side sort of business you still
kind of merging into each other now?
It's merging into each other, right? Because I can see your social media has all changed to SENturion.
Yeah, so we've rebranded everything now to SENturion because it is the main focus. Again, as I've said, what I was doing as a coach in my private studio, I can only reach so many children at a time. And I said on a previous podcast, I say again, we want to be able to touch the lives of as many children in a positive way using fitness around the country. We really do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's so important to us. That I found a career through it, and a love of different sports and things like that, and I want other children to benefit from that.
Yeah. I like your passion, your drive, and that's something that when I was introduced to you by mutual clients, that's something that I could see that in you. That certainly it comes across in terms of how you speak and how you work with clients. You're very caring and very dedicated, and want to see change in this.
And as a child, I didn't know I had ADHD, and I thought the world was against me, and I couldn't understand sometimes the way I behaved in certain situations. Now I do understand why I did some of the things I did and everything else. And if I could go back in time now, I'd tell myself everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
That boy there that didn't really have a lot of friends at school, didn't get invited to school parties, wasn't on pick to play team sports, that thought he was alone and didn't understand why he had a different thought process to other children, why he had the impulsivity to act like a clown in class, and I understand why now. And like I said, if I could go back in time, I'd tell myself everything's going to be okay.
No, I definitely support that. I think just going forward, looking forward into sort of the future. Have you got any upcoming initiatives or crowdfunding efforts our listeners should be excited about or just be aware about?
Yeah, I mean, Holly, this is your this is your niche.
We do. We are going to launch a crowdfunder in the coming weeks. We're just waiting to just the final dots on the I's and crosses of the T's. So we are going to launch a crowdfunder, which we will promote through our social, and we'll share with you as well. But the purpose of the crowdfunder is really to raise as many funds as we can that can help us buy equipment for schools. So when we arrive in a school and a school says we've got children with these sensory issues, we are well equipped and we can support that. We are self-funding at the moment, so there does come a fee with the coaching costs, things like that, travel and expenses. But the crowdfunder is really its main mission is to raise as much money as we can to buy the equipment we need to go into schools, and then to pay the coaching fees to head into schools, so that the school doesn't have to pay for this themselves. We know that there's a funding issue across the education system. We don't want that to be a barrier for schools. The point of what we do is to make, equal opportunity to fitness activity for everyone. Focusing on the neurodivergent and SEN community. So we don't want funding to be an issue. So anything we receive through that crowdfunder is greatly appreciated, not just by us, but the schools and the children themselves. And we look at it, it's an investment to an inclusive future. It's not an investment. We're not run by shareholders. We're not making money ourselves. This is all to go back into the community.
Yes, it's not for profit. It is purely to pay for equipment, pay for the coaching fees, and giving these children a chance to level the playing field.
Yeah. So it's community interest company basically.
It is.
So yeah, absolutely makes sense. Do you are you targeting mainly mainstream schools, or do you go into kind of special needs, SEN type specialist schools as well? Everything.
Wherever there is a child that needs us, we'll be there.
Okay. And
all being well.
Up and down the country.
At the moment, we're starting in the home counties. As it's, primarily I'll be doing the coaching. To start with, but as things progress and the funding allows, we can take on more coaches. And absolutely, we would love to have coaches in every county of the country.
I'd say if there's a school or anyone associated with a school or with a child that's not in the home counties, though, please don't hesitate to reach out, because there might still be something we can do or support you with. It might just be that we can't be there in person, but
it might just be that the ebook is something to get things going for them for the time being. If we can send that. But we want to hear from everyone really, and help as much as we can. And
lastly, how can our listeners support you and get involved with SENturion Fitness Coaching?
So SENturion Fitness Coaching has obviously its Instagram page, which is a very busy page, and we've got our website, which is SENturion Fitness Coaching CIC.co.uk. I think they're probably the best two, aren't they?
Give us a follow. Please donate anything you can for a crowdfunder. We'd really appreciate it, and I know the schools will as well. It is an investment to a more inclusive future for these kids, and it's not just an important mission for us, is it? As a family, it's for many families across the UK.
It is. I wish personally, I wish there was someone out there doing this when I was a child. Definitely, because I think. I wouldn't have been that lonely child back then. I think I would have had more confidence and more drive.
Give us a chance and you'll see the difference.
Is that, because I haven't done any research around this, is there anyone else doing it, something similar out there currently?
We don't think so, especially not the way that we're doing it.
Right. So clearly,
I think we're quite unique in the way we do things as well.
I think we're a smaller organisation as well. There's a lot more flexibility in what we do, especially given we're recently incorporated. So I think that's a unique edge, and I don't think anyone else is necessarily doing it where they are incorporating the gaming, the extra gaming element, and also incorporating the games that are relevant to that child or whatever it might be, the interest into the activity and theming the activity, so to speak.
And the fact that I come from probably the best example of experience, being that I've been through it all myself, being ADHD, having children that are neurodiverse, and I've lived it, and I get it. I do get it.
They could relate.
Yeah,
absolutely. So games, you mentioned about virtual reality a while ago. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
But this is Holly's.
Wow. It's the second
it's
element
great.
of Chris's involvement.
Oh wow, so Chris done a lot, isn't he?
He recently bought a work training aid, which turns out to be a virtual reality headset, which we have played around on. The kids have had a go on.
My children love it.
There are lots of different physical activity games through that, which you are playing a game, but actually you're pushing yourself harder by playing the game, whether that's through boxing, running, whatever it might be. But there are games on the virtual reality headsets that you can play that raise your heart rate, that work on your balance, that get you moving just in any way. And I think because you don't feel like, or the children don't feel like they are taking part in exercise, they're pushing themselves harder, and then as a result they're having greater benefits from exercise. So it's something we want to do and will do on one-on-one. It'd be too overwhelming to do more than that. But the virtual reality and the exergaming is a new method in kind of
it's something
session.
we are really positive about, and again it goes back to that relatability that I spoke about earlier, about taking a familiar game that a child loves to play and turning that into an exercise. You've got that same kind of element there.
I'd feel, I don't know if you remember, someone from, oh gosh, she's gonna have a go at me now for not remembering, Rosie from the Fred company. They specialise in virtual reality, particularly for SEN children. I don't know if you remember that, but we were discussing about those particular games. I then actually gone out and bought one, actually, a VR set, and I got my son to play. I agree, there's so many games you can play on there. I like Beat Saber, that's one of them, where you
with the blocks and the lights.
Even for adults, I've played it myself, and it's a proper workout.
If you think how important that could be to also just slightly different, how that could be incorporated into a child that is electively home educated, or a neurodiverse, or a child that's SEN that won't leave the house at the moment. You're still getting. You've got our ebook, and then you've also got the VR sets as well that could be really helpful. Albeit they are expensive. But I can see in the next few years they'll become more hopefully reasonably priced and things. Is there anything else that you want to let our listeners know before we conclude?
Just thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for having us again.
Good
Fantastic.
to see you. And
it is. I mean, please follow us. Please watch out for what we're doing. As Holly said, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher or a SENco, reach out to us if you've got any questions. Anything you want to know, we'll be more than happy to help with.
And once again, do you want to say your website and social media handles?
Instagram page is SENturion Fitness, SEN, not CEN, and the website is SENturion Fitness Coaching, CIC.co.uk.
Excellent. Thank you guys for coming on, and we should do a catch up soon, actually, just to see how
to the studio again.
I should come to this. I've been saying that
with your kit this time.
With my kit this time. We should have recorded this in the studio.
Definitely,
Thanks,
definitely. No, absolutely. Nice to meet you, Holly.
And you.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Dan. Good
Thank
to see you again. Take care.